Hello and welcome to Tech with Jaspal. Whether you are new to Git version control or a seasoned pro, this video has something for you. We will dive into the most commonly used Git commands and explore real world use cases. Stick around till the end, even if you are an experienced Git user for a valuable refresher. Let's get started. So friends, usually the first command you will use in a new project is init command. It creates a new Git repository. So how we will use it is, first let's create a folder named git underscore demo. Let's now browse to this folder in the terminal because that's where we are going to run the Git commands. Now I'm using Visual Studio Code for this demo and I have already installed Git on my machine and it is integrated with PowerShell. So the first command, as I said, we will run is git init. This initializes a Git repository. And as part of initializing, it creates a .git subdirectory in the working directory, which contains all of the necessary Git metadata of the new repository. And this command automatically creates a master branch for you, as you can see, which happened just now. You can see the master branch in blue. Usually when you are using PowerShell integrated with Git, you won't see these helpful branch names, or shortly you will also see the differences when the files are unstaged or staged, the colors will change. So if you are looking to get this functionality, because this functionality is very helpful in understanding what is the current state of Git on your local system without even running the commands that we will discuss in this video. You will need to install Git Posh. Basically, it is an add-in which is provided with PowerShell only. So if you are using a Windows system and you use Git in integration with PowerShell, you can get Git Posh. Friends, if you are interested in knowing how to install Git Posh and integrate it with PowerShell, leave your comments on this video and I'll come up with a new video explaining the process, how to get hold of it and how to install it. So let's now go to this folder and see whether the .git folder got created or not. So how we will do that is, in the Visual Studio Code, you get an option to reveal in File Explorer, which you can see has opened the folder in the File Explorer, and you can see there is a .git folder here now, which means the folder has got initialized and it is a initialized Git repository. Friends, one thing to note here is this is a hidden folder. So if you do not have hidden files, hidden items enabled, this will not show up. As you can see, I removed the check mark from hidden items, so the folder has stopped showing. So in case you are wondering why the .git folder doesn't show on your machine, then that is probably the reason. If you have initialized your repository perfectly fine. So now we are back into the Visual Studio Code and let's proceed further with more commands in this demonstration. So friends, as we have already seen, we have a master branch. So let's now go ahead and create an initial commit so we can proceed with branching part that will come later on in this video. So before we can do any branching, what we will do is let's create a file in this repository in the master branch, which is named as readme.md. This name doesn't really matter. It's just that I named it readme.md. You can name it anything based on what you're working on, what are your initial requirements, and so on. So now here comes the next command in picture, which is git status, which will now display the state of the working directory and the staging area. So let me run it. And here you can see you are on branch master, no commits yet. And it is also showing you untracked files. And in the untracked files, the readme.md file, which you created, is also showing up. Now you can also see the difference here. Next to master, you can see +1, then you can see 00 and exclamation mark. This tells you that because it is showing in red, this tells you that you have a unstaged file on your local machine. Now, friends, before you can even create a commit, you need to add this file to staging area, because at the moment it is an untracked file. Now, so that Git tracks you, you need to add it to the staging area. And how you do it? You run command git add. Now there are two ways to add files to the staging area. You can either run git add and then the name of the file, or you can run git add space dot. We will do space dot. What is the difference between using readme.txt name in the git add command and using dot? Dot basically tells it that whatever is there, the untracked files, just add it to the staging area. If you use git add, then the name of the file, even though let's say if you have 4 files which are untracked, it will only add that particular file. That's why I have used dot here, because I don't really want to be specifying each and every file to be added to the tracking. Now you could see the difference that now it has changed from red to green, which pretty much tells you that the files are now staged. But we will again look at git status. And here you can see now there is no such message that untracked files. Now what it is telling you is you are ready for your change to be committed. Now, how we will basically create a commit. So for creating a commit, you have a command git commit, and then with a parameter which is -m. Git commit is the actual command to create a commit. Now -m switch is basically to give it a message. So here you will probably give a meaningful message. For now, I'll just say initial commit, and I will create the commit. Now you can see there are no +1 and 0 and those sort of things showing next to the master, which pretty much tells that you have created the commit. And it also says one file's changed and initial commit has already been created. Now, folks, you can use Jira request number in this message for tracking changes against your user stories if you work in agile model. It's always recommended that your commit messages are meaningful, so that someone who is looking at these commits later on gets an idea of what is happening in this commit by just reading the commit message. So friends, now you are ready to publish your changes to remote repository, so you can collaborate with others, which is where you'll make use of next git command, which is git push. But friends, before you can push the changes for the first time to a remote repository, you need to set the tracking. Otherwise, how would Git know where you want to merge this local repository? So let's first create a repository in remote, and that is where we will set our local repository to sync with the remote repository. In my case, I'm using GitHub. So let's go to GitHub and create a repository here. I'll probably name it same as the one which is on my local and which is with the name of git_demo. So I'll keep it private for now because I don't really want anyone to be interrupting with our work. And I will not add a README file because I want to initialize it using the changes which I have made on local. So hit create repository. And the repository is now created. So friends, now what we will do is we will use git remote to set up the required connection between local and remote. You can also use this command to view and delete connections apart from adding. So as you can see here, or create a repository on command line, basically GitHub gives you the whole GUI thing to avoid all the commands. But if you are someone who likes playing around with command line just like me, then you can see what you need to do is git remote add origin, and then it is the URL to your remote repository. So we will go back to the command line and run this command. So this is how you have set that your local is going to be in sync with which remote. Sort of you have created a tracking that, yes, my local needs to be tracked with this remote. So now, friends, since the remote tracking has already been set up, we will talk about our next command which you can use, which is git push. Now, git push is basically used to push your changes to remote GitHub repository. And the command is basically git push origin master. So as you can see, this has now pushed the changes from your local to remote repository. It says new branch master to master. Let's go back to GitHub and see whether the code has showed up here or not. Just click a refresh. And you can see that the master branch is now showing up here with the initial commit readme.md file as well. So friends, this finishes the initial setup of a new repository. What we did is, friends, we initialized a repository on our local system, and then we made some changes where we understood the process of how we can create a commit. Then we set the tracking of the local repository to the remote repository, and then we push the changes to the remote repository. So now, friends, the next part would be, for example, let's say in your organization, you are working on different feature requests. So ideally, you will create different branches, which you can do using two methods. So we will not use GUI again for creating the branches. Let's leave it for another day. We will focus on Git command line at the moment. So we will go back to our Visual Studio, and basically the command that you can use to create branches, git branch, and then the name of your branch. So for in our case, let's call it develop. So it will create a new branch called as develop. Now, friends, you need to, so at the moment you can see it has just created the branch, but it has not switched to the develop branch. So at this stage, if you are making any changes, then you are still making those changes to the master branch. So you need to move to yourself to the develop branch. And how you do it? Git checkout develop. Now you are switched to the develop branch. You can see in the PowerShell also it is showing develop here. So friends, this is how you create a branch and you switch to that newly created branch. This is a two-step process, but there is a way to do it in a single step as well. And how we do it is, we will run the command git checkout with a switch, which is -b, and then we will give it our branch name. So let's name it develop2. It will create the branch, and you can see it switched also to that branch. So now it is up to you whether you want to do a two-step process when you are creating a branch, or you want to do everything including checkout in single step. But both of them achieve the same goal. So friends, before you can push this new branch to remote, you will again need to set up the tracking. So what we will do is we will run the command git push set upstream, and then the branch name is develop2. So it will push the branch to the remote and also set up the tracking. Now we have just done it for develop2. Let's do it for develop1 as well. Sorry, I think it was develop. Yeah. So both of our branches are now synced to the remote repository. Let's go back to GitHub and see whether these branches are showing up there or not. So if you hit here, you can see there are 3 branches now: master, develop, and develop2. And it is showing the branches up to date with master. That means because we had a latest pull on our local, the changes, whatever there were in master, were used to create the new branch. Now, friends, the next command you should know about is git pull, which is used to fetch and download content from a remote repository and update the local repository to match the content. This is a very common task that you will perform when multiple people are collaborating in the team. So let's make a change in remote repository and try to pull it later. So to make the change in the remote repository, what we are going to do is we are directly going to make changes from the GitHub console. How we can do that is I switch to develop branch. Now I'm going to click add file, and I'm going to say create new file. And let's name it demo file.txt. In the contents of the file, let's write this is the file which was created using GitHub UI. We are just doing everything what we did through command line earlier. We are just doing it through GitHub UI now. So, and you could see now we are going to commit these changes. We are going to give it a meaningful name. For now, let's keep it create demo file.txt, commit directly to the develop branch. And friends, that's it. The commit has been created in the develop branch. Now what we are going to do is, so for example, as I said, you now want to work on develop branch, but someone has already made change to the develop branch. So you need to ensure that you have the latest of the develop branch. And the command that you will use here is git pull. As I said earlier, as you run this command, it will pull everything from the remote and bring it on your local. Now you can see the change happened and you have the demo file.txt here. This is the file which was created using GitHub UI. So that's how you ensure that you always have the latest which is there in remote before making any changes. As if you do not take the pull and you start making any changes, for example, someone else made change to the same file, and when you will push your changes later in the stage, you will get conflict saying that the remote branch is ahead of your local. We will shortly mimic this scenario and see what you need to do in those cases, but this is what you should know. Always, it is always a good practice to do a git pull before you start working on that branch. So friends, let's mimic this scenario. We will not take a pull now. What I'll do is I'll go to GitHub and I'll make another change, basically add another file here, and then we will create another file from local. Let's name it demo file 2.txt. And the content is this. This is the second file created using GitHub UI. Let's commit the changes, leave it, create demo file 2.txt. So now we know that the remote develop branch is ahead of the local develop branch, and we have forgotten to take the pull. So what we'll do is we'll create a third file, which is demo file 3.txt. Now what message we will give is, this is a file created on local without the use of GitHub UI. Now we have created the file. Let's run git status as always, and we should see that there is a file which is unstaged at the moment. So we'll go through the same steps to add this file. This time, instead of git add space dot, we will use git add demo file 3.txt so that you see the other version of the command as well. So friends, you can see it has turned green. That means the file has been added. It is not untracked anymore. Now we will create a commit, which is git commit dash m, and then this is my second commit from local. Let's hit. So friends, now we have created the commit. What we'll do is git push origin develop. Now you could simply use git push, or you could use git push origin develop. This is more preferred option to use origin develop. So you are telling it which branch you need to merge to. So at this point, friends, we are behind the changes that are there in remote. So this push will get rejected. Let's see. As you can see, rejected. So friends, in such scenario where your push has got rejected because your remote is ahead of your local, the strategy that you should follow is you should rebase. Basically, rebasing is the process of moving or combining a sequence of commits to a new base commit. Now you can achieve this in two ways. One of them is a two-step process, just like creating branch, or you could use a combined command, which is git pull and then followed by the switch rebase. What we are telling it is first do the pull and then apply my changes on top of it. So let's see how it behaves. So as you can see, in the left, you can see all the files are now here, and your files are also here. And if you click on, if you run git status, you will see that you are ahead by one commit. So we did pull and rebase in one command, but it's your choice. If you want to do git pull first and then rebase, you can always do that. But I try to avoid two commands and do things in one command. Again, what we are going to do is git push origin develop to push this change to remote. So the push has already been done. Let's go back to GitHub and see. If you click refresh, at the moment you have just demo file and demo file2.txt. After refreshing, you can see there is another file called as demo file3.txt. So friends, the next scenario you might face is checking the history of commits in a branch. And for that, you will use git log. If you run just git log, then it will show you the history of all the commits made. Let's first look at that. So I'm just running git log and you can see it gave me commit history of 2 commits. It is telling me who is the author. It is telling me on what date that commit was created, date and time, I would say, and then what was the commit message. If you hit enter, it will show you the details of the next commit and so on. It will continue to go till the end. As you hit enter, it will show you next. So we are now at the end. We'll press Q and exit it. Now, maybe you don't want to see all the history. So what you'll do is you'll run git log -1. This will tell you the history of only last commit. This will just give you the details of the last commit that was made to the repository. Now, there are variations of this command. For example, you only want to see merge commits or you want to see last 2 commits. Those are more detailed scenarios which you would want to implement in your environment. But if you are facing any issues in any of the Git commands, any of the scenarios, then feel free to post your questions in the comment section and I will try to address them as soon as possible. So friends, the another scenario that you will have is when multiple people are working on different branches and you want to ensure code of other branches is in sync with your branch. So you can minimize the chances of conflicts which can arise when both of you and your teammate have made changes in the same file, and you use git merge to achieve this. So let's first go back to the UI and see what is the scenario we are trying to replicate. So at the moment, friends, till now in this demonstration, whatever changes we made were in the develop branch. So for instance, you want to work on develop2 branch now. But develop2 branch doesn't have all those changes which are in develop branch. And this will cause conflicts. So it is always recommended that your all branches, I would say at least your feature branches which are develop and develop2 are in sync with master. But for this demonstration, let's sync develop and develop2. So how you can achieve this is from GUI, you can compare and pull request, but we are not going to do that. We will go back to our command line. So how we are going to do is, first of all, you need to ensure that you have the latest pull of your source branch. Now, in this case, our source branch is develop and our destination branch is develop2. So first we will run git pull to ensure the code for develop branch is up to date, even though it is, but we will again run and get a message that already up to date. As you can see, it is up to date now. Now what we will do is we will switch to our destination branch, which is develop2. And how you do that? We just learned git checkout develop2. So friends, this is how now you have switched to develop2. Now, basically to merge the changes of develop into develop2, you use command git merge and then you tell the name of your source branch here, which is develop, and hit enter. So friends, it has, if you can see now, all the files started showing up in the develop2 branch. Earlier it was blank. We will run git status and it should show you that your branch is ahead of origin /develop2 by 3 commits, which we already know. All these 3 commits came from develop1 or develop. Now what we are going to do is we are going to use git push to ensure your local is in sync with remote. So what we are going to run is git push origin develop2. So friends, this has now pushed your changes to the remote branch. This is another scenario basically which you will encounter in your real life scenarios. Now I'm going to hit refresh and you should see all the files will show up here. Just ignore UI at the moment. What it is telling is master is not in sync. Okay, so let's sync master as well now, just so that GitHub is happy. So how we are going to sync master? We already have the latest pull. Let's sync master from develop2 this time. Let's do another git pull. just to ensure we have now seen that everything is on sync on local, what we will do is git checkout master. So now you are on the master branch, and you can see on the left hand side all the files have gone away. Here it's a red strike on both the files, just the readme file is here. So let's do git merge, and this time we are merging from develop to. So you can see all the files have come, the red strikes have gone away. What we'll do now is git push origin master to merge your changes to master. Now your master is also merged. Let's go back to GitHub and see how it looks like. You can see all those yellow warnings have gone away because GitHub has sensed that now all your branches are in sync. So friends, this is how you can avoid getting conflicts in your real world scenarios. Now, friends, before we close this, we started with Git init, which you would use when working on a new project. How about when you need to work on an existing project which already has a repository? In that case, you will use git clone to clone the remote repo to your local. Let's try to do that. So friends, there are basically two ways to clone a remote repo, which are HTTPS or SSH. But when you are dealing with GitHub, you have a third method as well, which is GitHub CLI. Now, for the sake of this demonstration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use HTTPS method. Okay, so before using this method or to clone, let's first create a new folder because we already have cloned this repository. What I'll do is inside git tutorial, I will say git underscore demo 2. And I'll try to clone my repository inside git demo 2. So let's get out of git demo and let's get into git demo 2. So we are now in git demo. Let's clear the screen. So how we are going to do clone is basically run the git clone command, and then you will have to specify the URL of your repository that you need to clone. So friends, what we'll do is git clone and then URL of your repository. So it says cloning into git underscore demo. Now the clone has already been done. Here you can see everything is there. So friends, I hope you now understand how you clone an existing repository. If you want to work on an existing project which already has the initialized repository, you do not really need to initialize a repository in this case. And in this case, you do not need to set up all the trackings that you did initially, like setting the upstream tracking, setting up the downstream tracking, because you cloned an existing repository. So the .git folder which got created in this case already has the tracking information. So the scenario is different here. So you need to understand, if you are working on a fresh project and you created the repository on local, then you have to set up those trackings. But for instance, let's say if you started working on a fresh project and you created the repository using the GitHub UI, in that case also you won't have to set up the tracking because you will create the repository using the UI and then you will clone it on your local. So the scenario would be pretty much similar to working on an existing project. So it totally depends on how you are approaching your project, whether you are creating a new repository from your local or you are creating a remote repository from your GitHub GUI. You have to follow the different approaches. But the bottom line is the basic commands that we discussed, which is git clone, git branch, git checkout, rebase, merge, log. All of these commands will still remain the same. It's only the thing that will change is setting up the tracking is not needed anymore. However, you will use other commands as we used just now. That's it for this video, friends. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more DevOps and cloud computing content. Thank you for watching.